Hey, sports fans! Coach Nick here, and welcome to another edition of the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you, as always, on Monday midday. I hope all is well with everyone out there. And as always, I'm joined by Andrew Combo Salab to discuss the latest and the greatest in the NBA. And wouldn't you know it, it took a while, but we finally had that blockbuster trade we were kind of hoping for maybe in the beginning of the summer. With Cat going to New York, Randle going to Minnesota alongside Dante DiVicenzo. There's a third team in there with a little bit of stuff. So we got to talk about it, don't we? Combo, how's it going, my man?
It's going well. And do you know how I found out about the Knicks trading Julius Randle?
How did you find out?
Coach Nick texted me. The Knicks finally did it. So all I knew was Julius Randle was out. I didn't know exactly what happened, so I had to dive a little deeper and find out the rest of the details.
Well, you know what's funny is that Premiere has the ability now. Adobe Premiere has the ability when you bring in video, it will transcribe the audio, and you can now search through, whatever is said. I had this fantasy this morning, thinking, you know what? Maybe I'll go through live shows from 4 and 5 years ago or 3 years ago when we were talking about all this and how I thought Randall should have been traded, just to find. I probably said it every other week for last 3 or 4 years. I didn't think it was going to benefit me enough to actually go through that and try and do it. So I just figured, take my word for it. I've been saying this for a long time. And they finally did it. They finally shored up the center issue on the starting side, at least. So who do you think who do you think won the trade? I suppose let's start there.
The Knicks definitely won the trade because, as you said, they needed that center, and they got one of the best centers in basketball. It changes the dynamics, and it almost changes the weaknesses of the team in a way, because now they don't have that initiator that you could go to when you need a bucket in the playoffs as much. But for that reason, I actually think Mikal Bridges is more of an X factor than ever, because I believe he's going to have to play make a little bit more and initiate a little bit more with Julius Randle out. But the Knicks got the better player, and it's a better fit. So overall, I think the Knicks won the trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think by bringing in OG, they're already kind of moving away from that. Randall going down for that big stretch in the second half of the season, and they went, 24-2, whatever they did, right? I think sort of cemented in everyone's minds that there's something going on here that was working, that they didn't need Randall. And certainly when you had the guys going in, no one is more upset than I am to see part of the Villanova core leave the Knicks in Dante DiVincenzo, because I really thought that was working really great. But if you had a choice and you had a chance to get, Karl Anthony Towns to start at center for you, yes, you have to give up DiVincenzo. It's a no-brainer on that end. What's funny is I've dug through all the footage. I've got the voiceover half written. I've got all the clips to amass. I've got 70 clips to go through and then present whatever, 40 of them. It was really fascinating to see, because I kind of thought, well, let's just sort of break this out in terms of what was Isaiah Hartenstein getting for the most part on offense, and how could that translate to Cat? And then I went back and looked at Cat his last full year under Thibodeau, which, if you might not recall, he won most improved player. He was a third team All NBA and an All-Star in that year under Tibbs. And his stats weren't even that gaudy. It was just he pretty workmanlike. But at any rate, it was interesting to see. So how about this? We'll throw it to you first. How do you think that's going to change the Knicks offense by replacing Hartenstein with Cat?
Well, I love Hartenstein. I loved him since I saw him play with the Rockets back in Summer League. And obviously that continued watching him play through the Knicks time. But Cat is obviously the tremendously more talented basketball player. And he shoots the three at a very high clip, which Hartenstein really didn't do. So I think that next to Brunson will be a game changer. I think they occupy a little bit different spaces on the court. I do think you need to get the ball to Cat more. He's probably going to have more volume with the basketball in his hands, right? A higher usage. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, Cat's an even better fit because he's more talented and he spaces it out to three.
Sure. I mean, and back then in 17, 18, Cat got a lot of post-ups, more than he's had since.
Yeah.
And he was pretty effective. Nothing fancy, just throw the ball down there and go to work, which is what you're going to hear me say in the voiceover. But, they did a lot of that. So the one question there is, will they do something similar? Because Hartenstein, again, didn't get a lot of low post touches to go to work and shoot it. So that's going to be something different. But then again, the NBA is much different than it was 6-7 years ago. So you might not see it. But Tibbs hasn't changed much. That's the other thing, right? I mean, the funny thing was, he was running triangle offense in the context of the modern kind of version of the triangle offense for this whole time with New York way back in the day when he was there, when he first got there, and then before with Minnie. So it's like he and I bring that up because so much of the modern offense now that we see is really like triangle Princeton stuff, really handoffs, into ball screens, all that kind of stuff. It's right out of the triangle, and so I suspect that will be a nice natural flow. We'll probably see a lot of that same kind of things that they wanted to do back then. Obviously, him number 2, I think, is probably got to be his best position, right? Or his best fit in terms of the hierarchy of best players, right?
I don't know. I kind of think him at 3 is probably best. And that's why I think Mikal Bridges has to step up, because I feel like, Cat is more of a generational talent than some of these other guys that I'm about to name. But, we saw over the course of the last few championships that you needed superstars in their role, right? Like Andrew Wiggins, like Drew Holiday, like Aaron Gordon. And I think Cat could be that for the Knicks. And I think this past season was a learning experience when Anthony Edwards was clearly their best player and their go-to guy. So if he can lean more into that, I think it'll not only benefit the Knicks, it'll benefit Cat's career. And I think he can inevitably win a championship.
Okay. Fair enough. And also, but don't forget, if you have a question, you want us to answer it, the best way to do that is super chat over on the YouTube side. We'll put it on the screen. We'll give you some love and hype, and it'll really help us keep this show going. So if you want to do that, please feel free to head over there and do that. Now, the thing about the way the offense will run, and I just saw like Jimmy Butler, they asked him what would look like when Bam starts shooting threes. Did you hear this? Did Bam suddenly add a 3-point shot that no one has seen or heard about up until today?
I guess he shot a few more in the Olympics. Maybe that's what they're talking about.
I guess I got to go back and look through those because I don't remember seeing very many. But his answer was kind of, listen, media day ends up being the kind of thing where they have all the rehearsed answers. Nothing is going to be spoken out of turn.
But Jimmy seems like the guy that wouldn't give you the rehearsed
I know, but he didn't give us the analysis because obviously, I know this is a left turn, but if Bam were to be able to space the floor, it's not like, oh, I want to score more, he wants to score more. Okay, that's a real easy answer to give. But really what it would do is drag his defender out away from the basket more, give more space to everybody else. And that sort of would have been the more nuanced and intelligent answer I would have hoped Butler would have
100%.
given, because that gets more interesting. I guess Bam was shooting in the Olympics threes. I'll check on that. It couldn't have been appreciably more, but let's say he's going to do it. By the way, I'm not sold. I don't think Bam's going to be taking threes any more than he has in the past.
Miami in general needs to shoot more threes. They got a lot of guys that like to rely on the mid-range. Everybody thinks of even Tyler Hero as a shooter, but a lot of his shot profile comes from the mid-range. Bam, mid-range. Jimmy, mid-range. Yeah, they definitely as a team need to shoot more threes.
I agree. And Tyler Hero coming in like 12 pounds heavier than he was at the end of the season. I just happened to see that. That's interesting. Maybe some of the agendas that people had are going to be put to rest, and they're just going to play. That might help them as well. But anyway, let's get back to the thing with the notion of how Cat fits in with the offense, because it's sort of related to that in terms of, when Hartenstein would play, he would get a lot of high post touches, and he was really terrific at passing out of that or rolling into a little, that little jump hook he'd have over his left shoulder or right shoulder, like to shoot that lefty zone. So what I'm thinking here is that as a defense would be able to guard that, they would know it was very much one-sided in terms of exactly what Hartenstein does after the handoff. Well, I have plenty of footage from the 17-18 season with Cat under Tibbs, where he would do the handoffs in the high post and then step back behind the three-point line. And when you see the defense panic and start running, and this is before he really was like the best three-point shooting center, self-ordained before all that happened. So they still respected him a little bit, and you can see that gravity where now you guys had to kind of run at him and really focus. And then certainly last year, when you look at some of the same stuff, you had one or two guys running to him, and he'd get all sorts of one more passes to the corners for wide open threes. So that's why I think where it's going to be a profound difference is that they're going to end up having a lot more of that. Now, does that mean that the offensive rebounding goes down because Cat will be a lot farther from the basket a lot more often?
Yeah, but does that matter? I'd rather take the shooting over the offensive rebounding, right? Especially in the modern game.
I mean, the problem with that is that offensive rebounds lead to the good 3-point shots too. So
Especially for the Knicks last playoffs, there was a lot of that for
yeah,
sure.
and so we should look at that in terms of. I suppose you could do over maybe a small sample game. Look at Hartenstein's offensive rebounds and how many points they generated off of that versus what we'd expect, Cat to shoot from three. There might be some numbers there. It could be close, but I would, and that not to say that Cat isn't going to roll after he hands off. I'm sure he will a little bit down to the basket, but he definitely has gotten into that mode where he's going to want to take his 7-8 threes a game. And that's how, one of the only ways for him to do that would be to float to the perimeter as much as he can. But I'm encouraged. I think that it really ends up opening up because remember we were lamenting the most about what Hartenstein did offensively for them, and I think he will now add the 3-point shooting. And the other thing is that Hartenstein's passing was one thing that I thought they're going to miss, but it turns out when I went through the footage, Cat actually is an underrated passer.
Yeah, I agree. I think he makes some special passes. I think because Jokic is in the NBA now, it just feels like no other center passes the ball great. But if you really watch him play, he just has good feel for basketball. He's highly skilled. So, Coach Nick, let me ask you, you feel like this was a good trade for the Knicks, a great trade for the Knicks, not so good? Like, how would you grade it? F to A?
Well, okay. So I think it was a great trade for the Knicks because it shored up what they needed to shore up. That said, they now really are so thin. They don't have much.
No depth. Yeah.
Does it matter, right? Because you're going to end up breaking up those 5 throughout the game anyway and getting your 2 or 3 together with the, only a couple of the bench players at a time. So, and we already know that Thibodeau is going to play these guys 37 minutes a game anyway, right? Which is another huge problem. So that's a problem as well. So I think if you're looking at it from like a GM standpoint, pieces on a board, like this is what they needed to do. And you have to imagine that maybe they're going to try and swing one more trade. I mean, what did I just see that seemed silly? Mitchell Robinson, like they're going to maybe try and trade him. Did you see that?
Yeah, I mean, don't they need depth at center, even though they just got Cat? Right?
Throw Jericho Sims out there, I suppose. But
if you want to win,
they might need something more. They might need yeah. Well, they don't need any more like 3-4s, right? I think they're kind of done there, right? I mean,
they lost one with Julius, but yeah, I agree with you. Right.
Well, actually, let me I'm off because you're talking about between Bridges and OG and then Hart or whatever. You kind of are okay on that end. It's like I guess you'd probably if you're going to trade Robinson, then yeah, you're going to need to bring another big guy who can play a 4-5. I think. Yeah,
that makes sense. I like Valanciunas, kind of like the Hart.
Yeah,
he's not as athletic, obviously, and he's not as good defensively, but he is a connective piece passing wise, which I really like for an iHeart replacement.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you're never going to quite get what he brought. I think there was
he's a unique player, and that's why he got paid. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is then is going to be exciting to watch OKC. So the other thing then would be defensively. We got to talk about that. Now, when they brought Rudy in, it suddenly shifted Cat back to the 4 when we were kind of thinking that the 5 was where they got the most advantage. Offensively, that was the case because when you would see him play the 5, this is Cat, he could trail into those 3s and, his man would always sort of be in the lane and not be anywhere near, and he could probably lure some of those as well. But then, when you watch him without Rudy, and I went through some of the clips without Rudy to see, okay, what was going on there. And that there's some damning on-off numbers for Cat in the playoffs where they were not as good with him on there versus other players, even though he had a nice run, to the conference finals. So the argument could very well be that, they realized that Cat wasn't the thing. It wasn't going to work with this whole thing. Now, the first year it didn't work at all, really. They were very mediocre. They barely made the playoffs and got kicked out in the first round easy with Cat and Rudy together. But you can't argue that the next year, right? Last year, they figured some things out and were able to make it work a lot better. And they became number 1 defense, which I think was a big part of it. So here's the question is, if you don't have Rudy backing, a guy like Rudy backing Cat on defense, are they going to be able to stop anybody?
Well, Mitch in the playoffs, if they don't trade him, could be a guy that would offer rim protection next to Cat.
Sure. So that's the funny thing is, I think when he gets healthy, which is going to be what, like January?
Right. I think December, January. Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if they started starting him alongside Cat and going back to that traditional look.
It's a nice team if you got Brunson, Mikal, OG, and those two guys. I mean, you got two great wings, you got two good bigs. One's more of a defensive big, obviously a little bit limited offensively, and then you have Brunson. I mean, it seems really nice on paper.
Right. So you have to send Hart to the bench, and then you'd have to have like OG or Bridges playing 2-guard, I guess. Right. That's how that would line up.
Yeah, that's fine though. I think in the modern NBA, right? I mean, why not?
And they'd be huge. Robinson, Cat, Bridges already is huge and long. And then you're talking about
which
is backcourt would be pretty,
which is great. Which is a great offset with a smaller guard like Brunson as your main guy, right? Like you kind of want to, you want to have big guys around him.
Well, I wanted to say, when you have defenders, if you had Cat at center and you put OG and Bridges and like Hart around him, that's really good defensive pieces all around the wings that they need. That said, Minnesota had a little bit of that last year, and it didn't. When Rudy goes to the bench.
Yeah, it's all interesting. I mean, Coach Nick, I know they probably did this trade because of flexibility, but if they would have just ran it back, they would have had a way higher chance to win a championship this season, at least, right? The Wolves.
We're talking about the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move the Timberwolves. But first, we have our first super chat. Thank you so much from D Rock. I really appreciate it. This might be the first super chat we got from D Rock, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. He says, "I can only hope Cat shockingly fails. The Knicks get embarrassed and Bridges leaves for China. It's all I got. Let's go Nets championship. Ugh. I suppose he must be a fan of the Nets, or he must be a fan of the Mini. Can't figure.
Chris Brickley came out and said that it's comeback season for Ben Simmons, so you never know.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a whole lot on the Nets roster after that. So,
by the way, I went to the Liberty game yesterday and I saw the poster for the Nets, and it was who was on there? Nicholas Claxton, who I like, and who's the bucket getter that comes off the bench? I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. What's his name? Somebody give it to me. The bucket getter, man. He gets like 30 when he plays, and then sometimes he doesn't play.
We talk about it all the time.
We talk about him all the time. But anyway, they were on the poster, so I'm like, this is not encouraging for the Nets.
Right. Lev Schroeder, Cam Thomas.
Exactly. It was Cam Thomas and Nicholas Claxton on the poster. I'm like that's not. And the reason Ben Simmons is not on is because he's always unavailable. So that's why he's probably not on the poster. I mean, it's going to be a tough season for them, but
I just saw Simmons is out there doing interviews talking about how he's good and he's going to be out there. So
he's a really good player, man. I mean, he's a great player when he's healthy.
Yeah, they can find the right lineups where they get 4 shooters around him. I think he could be really effective. So, but let's get back to we don't want to hope that people fail. We want to have everyone have success to some degree. And that's why it's like, I'm excited for the Knicks because again, they can make this work, I believe. And if they have to kind of do, I suspect they might want to be trying to do one more move here. And you're right, the Mitchell Robinson thing, like it might have been a whole hoax on whatever I saw that flip by my timeline, but if they were going to trade him, it was because he can't stay healthy anyway. So it's like, why would you want to rely on him?
Yeah, I totally agree. We didn't even know he was going to come back that late in the season. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a rough one, but again, with Tibbs, he's going to play these guys so many minutes that he'll be able to limit the issues during the regular season to the point where he has to be very concerned that someone's going to get hurt. And if you've forgotten, the one of the big game plans for the Pacers was they were going to just go fast as they could, knowing that these guys are going to play a lot of minutes and they could wear them out. And OG had the hamstring. Obviously Brunson's was a freak injury, but they basically ran them down and ran them off the court with that, knowing what Tibbs was going to do. And he's got to somehow resist it. I don't know what, we got to see more. I mean, I understand why he want to limit minutes for, oh my goodness, for Precious Achiuwa, because he's the kind of guy who can make the most confounding, mistakes you can imagine. Now, and he'll make a good play too. But the ones when they're bad are like head scratching. Jericho Sims is going to need to get more playing time. He's going to need to get out there. But who else are they going to be able to throw out there to get some minutes?
At the center spot, those are the two guys coming off the bench if Mitch isn't healthy.
I'm just thinking even from like on the wing.
They have McBride, who's a pretty good player.
Oh, that's right. They got Campaign.
Campaign could, like, when Jalen needs a break. He's a good backup PG.
Yeah. And they have Landry Shamet, who maybe he can have a resurgence and find himself in that small two-guard role. So they might be able to squeeze some stuff out. And remember, Tibbs has been, at least from the point guard role or point guard position, historically has been able to somehow, in that almost the Mike D'Antoni way, have these guys come out of nowhere and end up being really, really great.
I never thought I would
nowhere, but geez, did he get ignited?
I never thought I would hear a Thibodeau Mike D'Antoni comparison.
I know. If you can go back in time, he had several years in a row where like these unheralded point guards would suddenly be like having great seasons, and you're gonna have to remind me of some of the names because they're now like longer in the league.
D'Antoni almost like foreshadowed what the NBA is today, and Thibodeau is like the past.
Well, you can let me. Well, Derrick Rose was.
But it's interesting. It's interesting. Tibbs is doing really well in the modern NBA, so kudos to him. The game has not passed him by apparently,
except for the goddamn minutes played. That's the thing that he needs to finally once and for all.
Maybe that's. I mean, everything they do with this, they did a great job of finding Tibbs players for Tibbs, but maybe they're also thinking like, hey, he's not even going to play the bench anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it could be part of it, but yeah, they might be looking at trying to find someone else on a wing or somebody to come in and give them some more minutes that are solid. But again, you could go. You have some options here, and you can have different. You can go small. They can go big. They can do a couple different things here that will that hopefully will give them find extra minutes here and there. But Bron, Godfather of the Breakdown, Bron, awesome to see you. Thank you so much. It says Cat is clearly such a better fit than Randle on the Wolves, but then I remember they were 16th on offense last year. How can they get better? So let's shift this over a little bit. Let's talk about Randle. So the reason why I thought they should have traded Randle, this would have been 4 years ago when the Knicks first started to get good. They were mediocre for the whole season, and they had a run like in February. You probably remember this, where they won a bunch of games in a row. And they propelled them to a decent seed in the playoffs. And then they got hammered, and in the first round, Randle shot horribly. And that was sort of the beginning. He took a lot of difficult shots in the mid-range. And then from there, I was like, this is the most value he's going to ever have. This is when they should trade him. And they didn't, because I could already sense that there was just a way that he was playing that wasn't going to fit necessarily with Tibbs' offense and just the way they would want to do to win. And I just think he's sort of continued to prove that, right? Like, do you feel like he got better at toning down some of the bad, long two ISO possessions over the years?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at the numbers, but I feel like he did change his shot profile a little bit. And then there was a time when OG first came to the team and they were 12-2. They were rolling. Everybody was healthy. They looked like the team that had the best chance to be able to beat the Celtics in the East. And then the injuries came. And I think that's the side of things on why some Knicks fans feel like this wasn't the right trade, because they feel like with everybody healthy, they could be the best team to take down these Celtics. So I see it from that point of view, but then Cat is the better fit and the better player than Randle. So I more lean on that side of things.
For sure. And if you're talking about, this team is now built to be the Celtics without question, because you needed to have players who can guard Brown and Tatum. And with OG and Bridges, they have that, really well. So that's actually a really good move. And then if KP is playing, then Cat can handle that.
Right. I think actually they need Mitch for the Sixers. I think they need Mitch for the Sixers more than any other team.
Let's do that in a second, but let's finish doing the Randle thing. So the problem, so aside from like the long twos and sort of just like he played just a different version of offense than everybody else, and especially what we saw when he went down. The ball moved a lot better without him there, and they got better shots, and it was easier to kind of attack the basket and spread the floor. So the other issue I thought with Randle was that he could tend to have a cloud over his head that was raining all the time, who is it? It's not Pigpen. Somebody on the Peanuts always had the cloud following him. Charlie Brown, whoever it was. He was a lot like that. And I'm sure Knicks fans are well versed in how they had to deal with him. You could just see it. And the game would start. And you could already tell that there was something about his mental state that was sort of like angry and just standoffish. And like, and we talked about this so many times, but what I had started to see in the background of things was the Villanova guys identified this and realized that when he was happy, he'd play a lot better. So we now need to do everything we can to keep him happy, screwing around with him, pouring water on him, whatever, like while he's doing the interviews, all sort of fun stuff like that to keep him up. But that could be exhausting. And so I think that at some point they realized it just wasn't worth it with that contract as well, to have a guy who's going to come in and you never know what you're going to get on the mental side with him. And then, the shot profile, it wasn't perfect. And so they had to make that trade. Now, the funny thing is that they're bringing another player in who has issues in that same genre, I would suppose, right? In terms of how he deals with tough situations. And Cat, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say. I think also we have to look back that, you mentioned it before, Cat actually played with Tibbs before, and I don't think it was the greatest fit. I heard Austin Rivers talking about it a little bit, and I don't think he didn't say this exactly, but you could kind of read what he was saying, that they're not exactly the greatest fit. Now, Cat was younger. Cat didn't have the experience of playing with another player like Anthony Edwards, where he took a lesser role slightly. So it could get better from here. Now, thinking about this fit with Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, I'm about to look at the Wolves roster and see how that'll look. But they got two guys that could really go get you a bucket, though. So I don't think they got a great chance to win a championship, but they're going to be a tough team to play against. These two guys could really go. And then you have Rudy protecting the rim. It's going to be interesting. They need 3-and-D around them, obviously. But I think with the Julius contract, there's more flexibility, and that's part of the reason why the Wolves did it. But I don't think it was a great trade for the Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, the Wolves were going to get stuck in second apron hell, and so you get it. They needed to be able to get out from under that and have more flexibility. So, business-wise, I kind of get it, and they realized that Anthony Edwards is the man, that's the one they're going to want to focus on, and Cat was going to be expendable. So that all made sense to me. But they asked Tibbs about coaching him, Cat, in Minnesota before, and he kind of punted, right? I don't know if you saw that clip where he's like, nice try. They're trying any way they can to get him to talk about it. But it was very strange because it did feel like it didn't work that well. And you have to remember, with Cat, I suspect that there are, call them unique methods of communication that you need to use that would really help get through to him. And I don't know if Tibbs has those different methods, but the fact that he wouldn't have said anything about that is a little bit concerning to me, because he could have been like, you know what, he's different, I'm different. We've learned a lot since then, and I really know, we can get the most out of him. Something like that would even have been bland and whatever. But the fact that he doesn't talk about it means to me that he might still be concerned about it too, and remember what it was like to coach him, and what the one way he coaches, might not work with him. And he's going to try again. He's going to try and keep hitting that square into the circular hole.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Tibbs is a guy that would like to adjust to Cat's personality, right? It feels like the way this is going to work if Cat adjusts to what Tibbs is doing, even though, it's a player-driven league. But I believe in this situation, it's going to have to be that way. What's interesting about the Wolves, though, what if Naz Reid could become an all-star player? And then maybe you don't even lose that much.
Well, that was funny, because I kept kind of feeling that if they would have traded Rudy and let Naz Reid play that center position alongside Cat, I thought that might have been the best way to unlock everybody and get to the next level. So now you have a similar issue where Naz Reid's going to, I guess, have to come off the bench and have
No. He has to start.
So what is it? Randle, Rudy, Naz?
It has to be. Naz has to start now.
Okay. So then we're talking about Conley and Edwards.
Yeah.
So McDaniels goes to the bench?
Well, let's think about it. It's Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards. Yeah, and I would start those three.
Okay. I mean, I would think you'd want to have a better defender out there. Wait.
Or maybe Conley doesn't start anymore. But then who's going to play point guard? Yeah,
that wouldn't work either, I don't think. I would, I'm just thinking that Reed's probably going to resume his off the bench status.
I want to see what he could do with more minutes, more opportunity. I want to see it. I think he could thrive into something that maybe not anybody really expected and become an all-star.
I mean, it's a whole different thing. Let me check, because Randall didn't shoot. He had the 1 year when he shot 41% from three on 5.5 attempts back in 2021. And then since then, the attempts have gone. Oh, actually, they went up in 22-23. He took 8 a game and only hit 34%. And he was 31% last year on 5. So I don't. He's going to have to try and recapture that three-point magic he had several seasons ago, because if not, you're going to play him and Rudy. That's going to be hard to find space for the other guys.
No, I mean, Naz is a guy that could stretch. And I think Naz not only, I know you're talking about the numbers, but he's respected as a shooter. Like, right. I don't think they don't.
Naz can stretch it a little bit.
Yeah. So I also, hey, look, you know more about Michael Jordan than anybody, right, Coach Nick? And we always hear the Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan comparisons. Why not try Anthony Edwards at point guard?
I think he'd be uncomfortable
because that happened with Jordan in 88, right? 89, something like that.
Yeah, I know. And he was nailing triple doubles, and he was, making sure he got the triple doubles, whatever.
Hey, in gym class, you just give your best player the ball, right?
Yeah, no, I remember. I mean, I was there with those guys. I remember that very well. How we're like, and he was making sweet passes. He really kind of embraced it for about half the season or whatever that was. I suppose he could do it. I mean, now I got to try and in my mind picture how the offense was functioning, because a lot of the times, what does the point guard do? They just dribble the ball to the wing and make a pass, and like maybe they get the ball back every sixth possession. You know what I mean? Like that's how the modern game is now. Everyone wants to initiate by dribbling to the wing, and then you either center it for the delay or you go to the corner for a handoff, right?
Yeah. And often, like the guy who rebounds the ball will just bring it up in the modern NBA, because everybody is so much more skilled now. A lot of players have initiation in their skill set.
Yeah,
from every position.
Like just have Randle do that too. You can, they can all sort of do that. So that would be interesting. I mean, listen, you could argue. I wouldn't argue, but you could argue that Minnesota was on the doorstep of building a title team here, right? They were kind of. I still think that Rudy puts a ceiling on any team he's on. Sorry. And so I still think that's the problem. I would have loved to have seen Naz Reid.
I think
play center.
I think that's unfair.
You think it's unfair? I mean,
yeah. Look, like you could
offense on that position. I think you're in trouble.
So you just don't think any team? It doesn't matter the way it's built. If you have Rudy, you can't win a championship.
We've seen different versions of this for a long time now. And
I'm not the biggest Rudy guy, but I think if you have the right roster and Rudy on it, I think you could win a championship.
I don't think so. Sorry, Rudy. Love you, but I just don't think he can do it. I did think the ceiling. Now you can adjust his role where he's not playing the role he's been playing this whole career, and then maybe, yeah. But how
about Rudy? So how about Rudy off the bench, and you could put a McDaniels?
Right. Now we're talking. Now you're talking about something, right? Let him do his stuff in those 24 minutes off the bench, and then you get so much more on the offensive end. He really is, in my mind, that much of a non-factor offensively that it's you can't have him. You certainly can't really have him down in crunch time when you need buckets and you need to go back and forth with the team. I just don't see how he could be that guy. And the Olympics proved that too. I was about to throw my screen out the window a couple times with the stuff some of the mistakes he made, and it's like you got to have somebody who at least won't make the mistake. He won't make the score or whatever, fine, but he can't falling down, throwing the ball away, missing
year one
rim. It's stuff like that you cannot have at upper levels.
Year one wasn't as good with Cat and Rudy. Year two was a lot better. Anthony Edwards is going to improve this year, right? He's a young player. Not only on top of that, he has the USA experience. Who says they wouldn't have been a lot better even more this year? Like, know?
Well, again, there's that ceiling that I think exists by the roster itself. But okay, here's a good point. I don't think you could say any roster possible, because what if Anthony Edwards becomes far and away the best player in the NBA somehow? If you have Rudy on that roster, I don't think that necessarily means that, like, oh, Anthony Edwards won't be able to win a championship with Rudy, right? Okay. I don't know. If that's what you're selling.
I'm just saying, like, it's hard to just. What?
If that's what you're selling, I'm still not sure I'm buying.
Wow.
I would love to be proven wrong on this one, but I don't think I will be.
I mean, people thought the Knicks could win with Mitch. So why couldn't the T-Wolves win with Rudy?
I think probably make the argument that Robinson's probably better offensively than Rudy is. Right?
I think how bad Rudy's hands are is like overrated. I don't think his hands are that bad, but Mitch does have better hands. I'll give you that.
And his hands have gotten better on the margins. Rudy has, and
Right.
he's been able to do a couple things, but Robinson won't necessarily, like, maybe Rudy can do Robinson doesn't have the same mistakes that you see that Rudy will make offensively.
Yeah, I'm not some big Rudy guy, but I think like him as your third or fourth guy, you could win a championship when you have a guy like Anthony Edwards.
I'm still not buying. I won't buy that if that's what you're selling. Now, that said, it's the other thing is that they force Rudy into that role more than I think they should, where they look to him and they try and get him the ball and whatever. They don't really try and feed the ball to Robinson. He just kind of gets what he gets around the margins. Like that's where Rudy should be. But like,
that's my point. That's my point. So you can win with Rudy.
I suppose you can win with Rudy if you don't do what they've been trying to do, which is like feed him in the high post, find him like.
I totally agree.
It's like you. By the way, we talked about this. And I did the video. Anthony Edwards won't pass it to him. I don't blame him. He won't pass it to Rudy on roll.
Totally agree.
Ball screens for me.
I totally agree. That was my whole point. That there are scenarios that you can win a championship with Rudy.
Yeah, I get. If you can finally get him enough of a box where he won't hurt you, then on offense, then okay, I suppose that there's a scenario there. I haven't seen it yet, but by the way, he didn't have where he was on Utah, which I guess you can argue Utah wasn't ready overall anyway to go deep. Although they did have some incredible records during the regular season with him, but he was probably more the role I'm describing in Utah, and they still had problems, and it still would pop up in the inopportune time. So I think that's the issue. And I think more of my frustration is probably the fact that it really just hasn't gotten better. And I would like to see improvement, year to year from everybody. And Rudy just has not been able to make a significant jump. So,
well, we're in agreement if you believe in a sort of role, Rudy can win a championship. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would have to be, off the bench, I suppose, and then limit.
I mean, you got
go offensively, and I think then okay.
Start Nas. You got Julius, you got Anthony Edwards, you got Conley, you got Jaden.
I mean, I feel bad for Nas. He could start on like every team in the league. He's
better. He's better than a lot of starting centers. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, is he really a center? Like,
in the modern game, yeah. In the modern game, yeah.
Yeah. Like, how well would he do like against Jokic and an Embiid? Like, that's the funny thing is the 2 or 3 guys you got to deal with.
I want to see it though. I want to see him get like big minutes. I want to see what it looks like. Yeah.
And I think he could hurt him on the other end too, so it wouldn't be such an issue. And
how many minutes did he average? That's a good question. How many minutes did he average last year? That's a good question.
Who are we talking about? Nas?
Yeah.
He averaged 24.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I think like
it went up. Let's see.
What does it look like?
Down. Huh.
What?
In the playoffs, it was 22.6. So you actually that's the criminal. I can't believe I'm looking at this right. Let me make sure it's the right year. Am I on the right year? 23, 24. Yeah, in the playoffs, it went down a little bit.
Why can't you play him for 35? Why not?
There's no reason you couldn't, So you want to flip that. But I'm having trouble picturing what you're suggesting for the starting lineup in terms of McDaniels goes to the bench, so it's Conley.
No. I said that we could bring Rudy off the bench.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would love for that to happen. Will that work? I doubt it politically on that team, but you're right.
Yeah.
Optimally, you would bring Rudy off the bench, let Nas start, and then have Randle start. Now Randle, alongside Edwards is going to be interesting, and that's going to be some push and pull there. I would suspect there'd be some issues to start the season until they hammer him out.
Who's better at basketball, Nas Reed or Rudy?
Nas Reed. I mean, not even close. Not even close.
I want to see him get that opportunity. I think he could become an all-star.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all in. I'll buy that. If that's what you're selling about Nas Reed, I'm buying. I'll buy as much of that stock as I can. But let's get to our next super chat from Alan. Thank you so much, Alan. Great to see you out here. Really, really appreciate the generous super chat. They say the trade was weird for me. On paper, both teams won, sorta. But I see this as a financial move for Minnesota. They were set to be the most expensive team. And that's absolutely right. They had to kind of do something. And then the question was like, of all the places to go, they did it with the Knicks and Randle. Now, the question then is these are both teams that are at the very top of their conferences, right? Poised to like maybe do great things. So the question is where can you get to? Who can get farther now in the playoffs? Who do you think?
Oh, the Knicks.
So we have to take in consideration who they're going to play. So they have to deal with Philly and Boston.
Both teams in full health. It's the Knicks, no doubt, could go farther.
But the Knicks are so thin; they don't really have,
in full health, because Tibbs is going to play 6 or 7.
Robinson.
I mean, yeah, Tibbs is going to play 6 or 7 anyway. So in full health, I mean,
okay, full health. Yeah, I mean, certainly the fit is better. But we have to be concerned again about how the mental state of Cat under the guise of under the tutelage of Thibodeau. We have to be a little bit concerned about that if that hasn't changed.
Cat's going to get it. Cat is going to get his buckets, I believe, and then once he gets his buckets, he'll be happy. Right?
Yeah,
because he's just so skilled.
Well, here's the thing: Randall's mental stuff tends to be angry, and Cat's mental stuff tends to be sad. I think you'd probably choose the sad version of that over the angry version of that any day of the week, because when that cloud started following Randall, like everyone else got brought down, it was like, wah, wah. You didn't want to have to deal with that. With Cat, I think he's probably got a lot more. And then Cat can also play very energetically and up, in a way that Randall didn't always tap into the joy of the game. I think that's safe to say, right?
Are you calling him manic?
No, I'm not going to call anybody manic because I haven't diagnosed them. But if they want to come in and sit down on my couch back here for a couple hours, we could figure that out. But I will say that it felt like to me Randall's energy tended to be neutral to down, and mad. Whereas,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a sentiment. I think that's a sentiment of some Knicks fans for sure.
Yeah. And there are players that want to be intense and play like that. And you have to ride that very carefully because, especially in the modern game, I just believe that you need to be able to find a good balance of where you're feeling very positive and that unlocks more for you. And I think they could tap into that. And by the way, if they were willing to do that with Randall, they were certainly, you got Brunson and Hart. Those guys will make sure that they're going to keep Cat is in a positive frame of mind as much as possible as well. So that's important. So that should help him. Again, they're going to suffer a little bit defensively because I was looking at the numbers. Hartenstein.
How would you? Wait. Sorry to cut you off. How would you describe Rudy's emotional state?
Oh, Rudy. Rudy's pretty even, right? He's pretty even keel. He doesn't really get really upset. He doesn't get really happy. He seems like pretty even, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And that's also what you like, I like even. I like knowing what we're going to show up to every day. And as a coach, that's what I always want to try and project and give to the players is a very much an emotional stability. That's really important, I believe, at every level. I would imagine that the NBA probably even more importantly, which is probably why you don't really have too many yellers anymore as coaches, because that instability is not easy to deal with. And then it also doesn't yield the best play in my mind. But anyway, but to put a bow on Allen's stuff, we talked about this a little bit before. The financial move was important because of the second apron, which locks the team into not being able to hardly make any moves. And then it adds millions upon millions of dollars to your payroll. Maybe I feel like maybe the Warriors or somebody else got locked in and it was some ungodly amount of money, 100 million, something maybe more. I don't remember. I don't talk about that. I don't get into the whole salary cap stuff, but it could be a huge burden that by the way, it could prevent you from hiring coaches because there's just simply, they don't want to spend any more money. They won't fix the practice facility because they're so stuck with that, with ballooning salaries like that. So at any rate, that's a good comment there. Do we have any more super chats yes, we do. We have Euro Thunder. Thank you so much, Euro Thunder. Great to see you from somewhere in Europe spending euros on us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gobert could be on a championship team, but not with his salary gobbling up all that cap space. Okay, so by that rationale, he'd have to play less and have less of a role, which means he should be getting paid less for that lesser role, and then that has more room for other people. Okay, so we're kind of all arriving to the same spot in different ways, right?
Yeah, there are situations where Rudy could win a championship, I think. And then, I mean, not only just taking the, lessening his role, which I believe there is some truth to that. He's a great defensive player in a lot of ways, even though sometimes he has played off the court when it comes to defense. But to your point, but, great rim protection, obviously. And I think the IQ is underrated too. He's a smart guy. I mean, his hands aren't the greatest, but a smart player on both sides.
I wouldn't put the IQ higher than average-ish, maybe a little bit above average. I don't know.
A little bit above average.
Decide and define what IQ is, if we want to sort of get down that road, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that's like a whole podcast.
I mean, I think he's fine. I think he makes confounding decisions too. Again, because they're asking him to do things they shouldn't be doing offensively. So, but defensively, I think he does have a good IQ on that end for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he changes your defense in a lot of different ways.
We don't often talk about that, like defensive basketball IQ. And it definitely he understands that better than anything else.
Yeah, that's what made Scottie Pippen so great. Draymond Green, a really great player. Their defensive IQ. Obviously, Scottie could do so much on offense too, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, just being that connective piece where you can do everything you need to do for the team at whatever moment they need it. That's really what the sign. That's what everyone needs on a team, right? You need to be able to have this guy.
That's what Ben Simmons does, actually.
Yeah, although the scoring part, I mean, I know he scores and he's scored well, at times, but I wonder if he can go get a bucket if he needed it, right? I don't know if he's got that final piece of that part.
He's so elite in so many different ways when he was at his best, though.
Who is the Scottie Pippen of today's NBA?
There is none, man. Maybe your guy from there's no LeBron James.
I mean, Bridges moves a little bit like that, and body wise is a little bit like that, but he doesn't he doesn't pass like that. He doesn't.
I mean, he's a good defender, but Scottie's defensive IQ and also his playmaking was so much better than Mikal Bridges. LeBron James, Coach Nick. LeBron James.
You think LeBron James is the Scottie Pippen? No.
He's definitely the better, greater player. There's no debate, right? But I'm just talking about
LeBron over Scottie, but I just feel like
no, I'm talking about archetype of player.
But Scottie was the point forward. I mean, I know LeBron passes, but everything is so much like it sticks to him more than it ever would stick to Scottie in a different.
Scottie was more of a ball mover, and but he did initiate offense though a lot. Like
LeBron does.
Both of them did. I mean, LeBron more.
Scottie, I mean, that's what Scottie did. I would say.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But it was, I don't see that. It's tough to find similarities in my brain. That's you're making my brain hurt.
All right. So there is no Scottie Pippen.
There is no Scottie Pippen. That's so sad.
Oh, you know.
Oh, Kawhi.
Nah. Scottie Pippen would no, man. That's not a good.
Defensively, they were, they're on par when they were.
Yeah, but Scottie was more of like a connective piece, like make everybody around him better type guy, and Kawhi's more of ISO. I'm gonna go get a buck. He's more of the Jordan. He's actually more of the Jordan mold.
Okay, yeah. And there was a moment though when Kawhi was starting to start passing, and I had to defend that because people said he couldn't pass at all.
No, that's not true either.
But not like Scottie. So
different fabric of their game.
PG again is another.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But when, at PG's height, when he was really defending, there was something there, okay, mindset wise. But he's changed his mindset. Like it's a mindset too of how you want to get everybody involved. It's not about
If Scottie grew up in this era, his offensive game would look a little more like PG's though, just on the offensive side.
What? This year. And on this team, we might get a good Scottie facsimile from PG.
Right. On the if they're going to be good, yeah.
That would be a good video.
Yeah, that's the closest guy. But PG just has more of a bag because that's the era we're in, right? Like
yeah. Scottie would have added some of that stuff to his
100%.
And like Scottie was one of those guys who probably improved the most from the beginning of his career to the prime than anybody you'd ever see, I think. And he had promise, he had talent. But I feel like the amount of improvement and refinement that he was able to achieve was really impressive.
Well, Kawhi's in that conversation as well.
Yeah,
of improvement.
They started with elite tools, but it doesn't always work that way where you continually see improvement. Are we going to see any improvement from, let's say, what's his face on the Celtics, Jason Tatum? Are we going to see any improvement from Jason Tatum?
And they're messing with his shot, right?
I don't know. I didn't see any difference. Did you?
I don't remember too much. I got to see it again now.
Because remember, his whole thing is he juts the shoulder kind of in an awkward forward way. I still see that, and I think that was the only thing. And again, it hasn't really impaired, and he's shot really well. So it's like I don't know if I would really.
He hasn't been shooting well lately.
What?
He hasn't been shooting well lately.
Well, even like last year,
playoffs and Olympics, he hasn't shot well.
Well, I'm going to throw the Olympics out because it's the Olympics. But
playoffs
in the regular season, he shot 47% from the field overall, 37.6% from three on high volume. The year before he's at 35. So he's been 35.
What were the playoff numbers?
So it's around average. And so it would be nice to see him take another jump. And that it's very possible that what he does with that shoulder thing that can disrupt rhythm enough to, limit the ability to get to closer to 40. But I don't know. I don't really see much difference. And then whoever did they side by side, the angle is just enough off where you weren't seeing that it was the same thing. It might have looked different because the angle was a little slightly different. But I would love to see that. I would love to see him, improve. I think the ball handling could be improved anyway. The cleaning up for the last little piece on the margins, the stuff when he fumbles his dribble in his bag. If he could clean that up, I'd be really happy.
How about working on his handle when it has nothing to do with him getting in his bag?
Okay. You mean just bringing the ball up with no one?
Yeah, just like things you need on a basketball court to maneuver where you need to maneuver to. That's stuff like that. Like Scott didn't have a bag, but he just always got to where he needed to go to make the team better,
Yeah. I mean, Michael didn't really have a huge bag because he didn't need it, He had
nice handle in transition though.
And what's funny is that you can go back and find some pretty cool modern dribbling stuff that he did do every so often.
In and out behind, was tough. He had some stuff.
But he didn't, ultimately he didn't need it. He could refine the game to be a cold-blooded assassin. So, and Steph is sort of the same way. Steph used to do a lot crazier stuff. And as he's gotten older, he's just refined it and gotten just more to the distilling it down to the real, the least amount of energy needed to do those things. Right. Because it's a lot of energy, right, Combo, to get into your tween, cross, spin, whatever.
Yeah, players are really good at that, and not as good with feel for basketball as they used to be. Yeah,
but don't think I'm not teaching the high schoolers right now the tween swivel cross. I mean, that's a dominating move in high school.
Wait, give me that one. What was
that?
Tween
swivel.
Yeah, but tween, you gotta specify the tween because it could be tween where you keep it on the same leg, or is it like a scissor tween? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, same leg.
Okay, same leg. Tween. What'd you say?
Swivel.
What's a swivel? In and out?
No, it's when your feet switch.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, and then has he go? I like that.
And then cross.
That's tough too. Yeah. Oh, that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then if you don't,
my back's hurting me. But you ready? So I go. Ready? Tween, swivel.
Yeah, that's good.
Cross.
And then on top of that, which is kind of a regression of that, you could just hezzy and then go.
Yeah. Or you can go tween, swivel, go, and then tween, swivel, cross. Or you can go.
Or you could go tween. Or you could go tween, hezzy, pull. Right in their face if they back up on the tween.
Which is a right left, which I actually like, and I've been grooving that a lot too. Alan Tran, thank you so much, Alan. Great to see you as well with another super chat for us. Thank you. At the deadline, Randle for Ingram. Nola needs size. Now you throw Ingram on that mini team. I like that. You can go like McDaniels and Ingram and Ants across that.
Why do you like Ingram so much better than Randle? They're both heavy ISO guys.
They are, but Ingram at least will. Now I'm talking out of turn. Ingram will shoot the three better.
I don't know.
Will he?
I don't think so.
Ingram will shoot the three ball. He was at 35% last.
What's the volume? That's what I want to know.
And he's not a high volume three guy last.
I think Julius Randle's more high volume than him, right?
The year before, but again under 4 attempts. He had 1 year where he was promising 1920, where he was going to start looking, shooting over 6 a game, and he was in 39%, 38%. I would like to see him get back to that. Defensively, I think Ingram, I would probably give him the nod over Randle in terms of the ability to cover more ground and have a lot more length. And maybe a little more energy on that end, right? A little bit, especially if he's on a good team like that. But
Randle, what's Randle's volume?
Randle went down. Let's see. Randle, last year was at 5 a game.
Oh, wow. I thought he shot more than that.
He was at a little over 8 a game the year before in 22-23. So he did, but that was an anomaly. Everything else has been around 5. So I don't know. I would suspect that he'd probably still be around.
I thought he shot more than that for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. I would like him to shoot more. Maybe that's what you want him to shoot more. So, but I would be intrigued by something like that. I mean, it sounds like Ingram has always been the trading block for a while. They're going to, maybe want to find something. But then again, they might come in with a little bit of a different team this year and do some serious damage with Zion leading the way.
Yeah, I mean, I heard he's in great shape, right?
He looked. I saw a picture at least, and what is that? Is that AI? I don't know, but they brought somebody in. Who did they bring in? Am I forgetting? Maybe not. But then I saw some weird thing about like Trey Murphy was on that. They're going to try and trade Trey Murphy. Did you see that? Where did I just see that? I don't think it's.
Oh, maybe he could be the Scottie Pippen.
Trey Murphy, he's the guy who I've said. I think. Remember, I got way ahead of my skis earlier this year and said that, and I think people were like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But
he's not the passer either.
He's not the passer either, but he's the body type, like that movement quality is similar in my mind. So there's a type that you can see that like
Scottie was so unique.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think anything else we want to cover right now as we wrap this up?
I foreshadow. Remember I told you, I think we talked about this. I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I was talking to you about how AJ Griffin retired from basketball and everybody was like,
yeah,
it's so sad, this and that. I was like, we don't even know the reason.
Right.
Like, why are we saying it's so sad? And it comes out he gave up basketball to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
So it's like he gave up basketball to follow his religion more closely, and people were jumping to conclusions. And and I just want to state that bring it full circle. That's why he left basketball. There was no sad reason about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I respect anybody who wants to dedicate their lives to something bigger than themselves like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's and who knows that they could change. Maybe he will come
That's
back,
true.
And it too. So but I hope he finds some peace and does some good work.
Yeah, I hope so too. And good luck to him.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you as well, Combo, for the rest of your week, the endeavors, which I suspect will be more podcasting.
Yeah, I just recorded a pod about the Knicks trade myself with Alex of Knicks Fan TV. Go check that out wherever you listen to Combo's Court. And obviously subscribe to B-Ball Breakdown. We have a lot more coming up over the course of this NBA season. We're working on some things. We're going to get bigger and better.
Yeah, turn on those notifications, please, as well. And stay tuned for the video I'm going to do where I spotlight the what they can open up on the offensive end with Cat in the lineup and then what they might be giving up defensively. The funny thing about Cat being a good passer, he can make a lot of those backdoor passes that we saw Hartenstein make. Not quite in the same way, but similar. But he did this thing at some point throughout his career where he started to make these quote-unquote no-look passes. But when you look at him carefully, he throws the pass and then looks away.
Who's that?
Cat.
They say Tyrese does that, and I think we're all guilty of that, Coach Nick.
Yeah. But the real ones know. When you're making a no-look pass, you can't be looking at it beforehand either. Although they'll even say that with Jokic. A lot of times he sees it, and he'll look away, and then he'll throw it. So he had seen it. But
well, if you look away for a while after the look, that's still. That's still a no look.
You can't look away after the pass, and then you're getting into some different categories. But anyhow, we got to run. I got to finish that video. But thanks so much for everybody out there on the super chat. Thank you, Combo, and don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown. We're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in?